Good afternoon and welcome to the Dharma Life podcast. I'm your host, Aloise.life Middleton, and today I have with me a very amazing gentleman who is going to blow our socks off with the amount of gnosis and knowledge that he has. Arain Samouie, welcome. Have I done it again?
That's okay. It's Ariane, but
Oh.
it's fine.
So I apologize. I cannot pronounce this gentleman's name, Arain Samouie. Yeah. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I've admired your work for quite some time, actually. I've seen your rise on Instagram and I have followed along and I listen to your videos and I always find myself being suitably inspired. So thank you. And when I asked you how you would kind of describe the work that you're doing, you said that you're an awareness architect. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit for our audience?
Yeah, I would say the closest thing that could be kind of relatable would be along the lines of a spiritual teacher. So, as awareness is the thing that creates your reality, it's a case of I take you down to the depths of yourself to understand what you are and who you are. I don't know if you can hear my dogs right now, but they're making a fuss.
No.
No, that's good. So I take people to the edges of reality so they can actually see what they are. And I teach them about manifestation, about reality, about creation, which has everything to do with themselves. So from every level, whether it's trauma work, whether it's understanding reality, I go there.
I find it fascinating because you and I think, have been on similar journeys, and I always find it really fascinating to understand how somebody becomes a spiritual teacher, how somebody becomes an awareness architect. How did you find, or how have you found yourself kind of doing this work?
Well, and to be honest with you, the short answer is pain. Because when you get to a place, you know, as human beings, we will create coping mechanisms for the pain that we feel. And then at some point, that coping mechanism is not going to work anymore. When the pain is that much, it forces you to look at it or it forces you to figure something else out. And we we essentially all get to the place where nothing you do will work anymore. That's the level and the stage where people have what we call awakenings because they are then forced to look at that pain to try and figure out what's going on. Now, for me, it it came to me easier than most. I understood things before I even learned them because we're not necessarily learning, we're remembering. And for me, I just got it. I was like, oh, that's what that is, and that's what that is, and then I'd watch a video, and it said that's what that is, and that's what that is. I was like, oh my God, it's such a fascinating thing for me. And the more that I did with it, the more I went deeper, the more I was fascinated, the more I was excited, the more this was just amazing. So I stayed with that, and the more fascinated you are with what you do, then you realize like, oh, this is so powerful and so important. This is what resolves my pain. This is what brings me my confidence. This is what gives me the awareness to the beliefs and the behaviors and the patterns that I've been stuck in that I've not even known. And then you look at everyone else and you go, oh, I can see that person is stuck in that same pattern that I was because of what they're saying or doing. And oh, I can see the reality for that person manifesting like that, which is what I went through. And so you kind of have this uh, inkling to tell people. It's like, oh, I can help you with that because I've been through it myself. I can help you. So you kind of just start. And then I realized, like, oh, I actually came here to do that. I came here
Yeah.
to to be the message essentially to be able to channel the information that we're looking for in that sense to then be the message. And that's kind of the path of being, I suppose, a spiritual teacher. You know, I call myself an awareness architect because uh, the way that I approach it is very, very unique. And I've seen a couple of people be like this, but my background is software engineering. So I used to code websites, I used to make a lot of websites. And the way that I see reality in the universe and all the things is mechanically. Now, that includes ourselves, that includes the internal world, that includes the trauma that we have and all of the anything you vibrations and frequencies and all that. If you look at it mechanically, it all makes sense and it removes the element of faith. It removes the element of like religion, like kind of like this religious view that you have to believe because of, you know, a lot of people struggle to believe certain things. But when you mechanically explain it to them, they go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And that's where most of my success has come, really, is to be able to explain something in a mechanical sense that makes sense. And for me, I see it as a new kind, a kind of like a new science. That's why I just wrote my grand unified grand theory of awareness, which is actually on my website, and it is explained in a mechanical way. So it's not about God said this and this. I say this is the way it is, and when you can kind of see that and relate it to what's happening in your reality, it gives you that aha moment, like, right, now I see why this is happening. Now I see I can use this as feedback. I can use what's happening in my reality as feedback in order to then know what to do next. And that's when you get to that place, oh, some beautiful things happen.
Wonderful, wonderful. So by the sounds of things, you take difficult, kind of complex subjects and make them simple.
Exactly, exactly that. Yeah. You know, it was always a frustration of mine as well when I couldn't understand something. And I always thought to myself, as soon as I get this, I'm going to explain it in a way that is so understandable. And I always do that with everything that I'm learning. I'm like, it doesn't need to be as complex.
So how does a software engineer, sorry, go from being a software engineer? This is the bit that always fascinates me. So going from your 3D job into your 5D purpose, how does a software engineer become a spiritual teacher?
Well, when obviously I've mentioned pain, what created that scenario where I had no choice but to look at the pain was actually the breakup of my last relationship. And that put me in a what I always describe as like a bonfire of pain, where I was stuck in the center of my suffering and I had no way of getting out. I couldn't breathe anything, and it forced me to look at it. That led me to then everything else that I've just described.
Right. So that must have been a difficult, would you call that an awakening as well? Like an awakening period for you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, for anyone, we have this viewpoint that there are like people that know that they're awakened and people that are asleep. And then we kind of have this like unconscious viewpoint that the people that are asleep will never be awakened or cannot be, or like this idea, but everyone's in the same boat. And for me, I was extremely logical, analytical, being a software engineer. You know, I was and what you would call an atheist. I just didn't really believe in all of that stuff. I was very, no, this is the way it is. But my reality started manifesting in a way that helped me kind of drop that to the degree where I started meditating as a way to escape the pain. It was my tool to try and help escape the pain. As soon as I started meditating, I was seeing things, not visually, but I was experiencing things that I was like, this is okay. Am I hallucinating? Like, what's happening? And then my actual 3D started communicating to me. There were people that I was listening to on social media that were giving me the best advice of how to heal trauma. And I was doing that and it was working. And those same people started talking about spirituality. And then I thought, oh, hang on. They clearly know what they're talking about because the trauma thing helped. It really works. So maybe I should give this a little bit more attention and I should maybe give this a little bit more of, validation and just listen to it. And then eventually I was opening up to the idea that maybe reality can communicate to me. And then I started watching YouTube videos and I started feeling my intuition where I was looking for an answer. And this little part of this YouTube video was giving me the answer that I was looking for. And I remember there was one moment where I was cooking and a YouTube video was on, and that happened. A part of the YouTube video gave me the answer I was looking for. And I looked at the I looked at my phone, and then I kind of confirmed to reality, to the universe, like, oh, yeah, no, okay, I get it. Yeah, I understand. And then I stopped. I put my knife down. I was like, I'm speaking to reality. Like, what's going, like, what is happening? I'm talking to the universe right now. So little moments of that helped me open my mind more and more and more and more. And then at some point, I was like, yeah, I get it. I believe. And understanding your belief system is the thing that's actually controlling it. Understanding the belief system is its own thing. It's not part of you. It's a belief system. So I was like, oh, look at this system here. Okay, well, beliefs and looking that, exploring, just being open to anything. And then the thing that completely tipped me over the edge, even up until the Christmas just gone in 2025, obviously you've been following me, you hear me talking about I have believed, but the thing that made me like, no, 100%. And by the way, up until this point, I've done ayahuasca, I've done mushroom, I've been to some crazy places, but there was still that kind of doubt. And the channeling that I got for my grand unified theory of awareness at Christmas, that break in Christmas, there was 2 weeks where it was just constantly coming and I was writing it all down and I managed to get it all together. That sent me to the tip because again, there's no um like faith in that needed. There's no, oh, you need to believe this, just, oh, that mechanically makes sense. So now oh yeah, of course. Of course, there's creation. Of course, the universe existence exists and it must exist. And of course, all of this, like, it makes perfect sense.
Wow. So you've had a series of epiphanies by the sound of things that have strengthened your belief system that you are creating your own reality.
Yeah, it's gone from the belief system to a knowing. So you can't believe in what you know and you can't know what you believe in. To believe in something is to still have a certain level of doubt. But what you know, there is no doubt. It's certainty. And certainty is actually a huge part of manifesting the realities that you want. But once I saw in this way that I have, it's not a belief anymore. It's a certainty. It's, oh, I understand. Again, for me, the reason why it helped me get there was because the way that I see it mechanically removes faith, removes all types of religion and stuff like that. And it just shows you that's what it is.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So we've got lots of people listening. And I suppose there's two questions that I want to ask. You know, a lot of people are seeking their purpose. You know, they don't necessarily know they're trying to move away from a job. They're on the journey that you have been on per se, moving from a software engineer into obviously doing your spiritual work. What advice would you have for them? They're listening to this now and they're seeing you, you know, you're out there, you're doing videos, you're coaching people, you're mentoring people, you've got community, you know, they see you doing this incredible spiritual work and they want that too. How can people lean into this path?
Well, the whole concept of purpose and following your passion is something that's very, very misunderstood. The thing is, your purpose, let's call it, changes. So for example, myself, what I'm doing now is actually different to what I was doing when I started. And it's because the reason it changes is because that's kind of like a direction of, let's call it the higher self, to telling you to go left or to go right or something. And we kind of think, okay, well, my purpose is this one thing and I need to figure out and I need to do it. And when you have that in mind, you're going to be very, very confused because then you might actually be in alignment of that thing in that moment. And then it stops working for you. And then you think, oh, this was the wrong purpose. Now I actually want to do that, but I should really push it. I don't really know. Well, really, what's happening is the kind of direction, the sat nav is saying turn left.
Mm.
So I really want you to understand that purpose is not this one definitive thing. It will change based on who you're being, where you are, what you need to learn, what's even happening, what needs to be brought up for you. There's so many different things that are steering you in the direction. Now, one of the things that I always talk about, the most important thing, when you understand how your reality is manifesting, you'll see that it's all from within. You actually have two connections to the 3D. You have the internal world rendering of the 3D, and then you have the rendered external world expression of the 3D. So, reality, when we think about reality, we're like, oh, this is reality, it's 3D, it's the matter, but it's not. Reality is actually multiple dimensions. For the sake of this conversation, we'll talk about reality being 3D, 4D, and 5D. When we talk about going to 5D, we're not going anywhere. We're just learning how to operate from a higher point of awareness. But you're already operating from a different dimension now. Your internal world, what we call the mind, which is where we do shadow work, that's all in a different dimension. When you sit down and you meditate, the reason you close your eyes is because you're removing the distractions of 3D. The reason you listen to one tone or one thing is because you're removing more distractions. You're removing sight, you're removing hearing. The reason you sit still is because you are removing movement, another distraction. All of that is so that you can focus on your inner world, which is a different dimension. Now, when you go to your inner world, to this other dimension, it's always in the same place. It's never different. You can be in one country in the 3D and then in another country and it's different. So in that inner world, you are creating reality. That is, think of it like the inner world, let's say, is a black space. It's a nothing space. There's nothing there because space is only 3D in that sense. It's projecting out of you. Your reality is projecting out of you. So that projection, if you think of it like, let's say it's like a screen in your 3D, in your inner world. It's not, but let's talk about it like this. That is what is rendering your reality. And then your human being is what is experiencing the rendered reality. Now, in order to truly align with your passion, with your purpose, you have to understand what your inner world is doing and why. You have to. I just spoke to someone and we had a very similar conversation. And they said, okay, I don't want to do the job that I'm doing now. I want to be a policeman. Okay. Why? And then we figured out is the reason they want to be a policeman is because of the injustice that they feel inside. They want to be on track, be doing something that means something. Yeah, okay. Well, let's explore that. It also comes from the beliefs, and the wounds that their parents would say to them, you need to either be a doctor or a lawyer. And if you're not, then, we're not proud of you. So there's no pride there either. So their entire focus was, I'm going to leave my job and be a policeman. That feels better. Okay. It could feel better, But feeling better doesn't necessarily mean that's aligning with your purpose. And this is where it gets really complicated as well, because we all follow what feels better, and that's understandable. And then we discovered that, oh no, it's not what I actually want to do. I don't actually want to be a policeman. I actually asked the question. I said, let's say I give you £1 billion in your bank account. Aside from traveling the world, you know, enjoying the luxury of that money, what would you create? What do you want to do? And the person didn't have an answer. I said, would you be a policeman? It's like, no, right. So it's not what you actually want to do. It's not your purpose, let's say. So what you need to do first, because if you start going, okay, well, it feels good to be a policeman, I'm going to go be a policeman. That's years and years and years. And then eventually, 10 years down the line, you might actually get to a place where you realize, like, oh, this whole time I've just been trying to cover this wound of injustice that I have. I've been trying to impress other people. I've been trying to get the approval of my parents. It's not what I actually want to do. And you just spend 10 years doing something that you don't actually want to do. But by discovering your inner world and understanding the why am I pushing myself to in this direction? What am I going to get from it? What unmet need is this going to meet? The reason why am I pushing for success? Like what is success? Success essentially, I think the definition of it is to achieve an aim or a purpose, is to get a confirmation of something. And that's what is that something? That something is value. Success is a confirmation of value. So if I throw a piece of paper in the bin, I can define that as success. I've successfully thrown the paper in the bin. That is confirmation of the value of me throwing something in the bin. Or a footballer who scores the most goals in a season. Their success is, oh, they are very successful on the pitch. So to the football club, they are extremely valuable because those goals are the confirmation of value. The reason we want to push so much for success is because we want to define ourselves as valuable. We want to find confirmation of value. So we're like, all right, I'll go do this and I'll go do that. All right, well, what about if you get to the stage where you give that confirmation of value to yourself internally first? You won't desire success. You won't. That doesn't mean you'll stop. It doesn't mean you won't create. It doesn't mean you won't do stuff, but you'll do it in a very different way and you won't desire success. So, in order to know where you truly need to be, how to truly get onto your purpose, onto your mission, you have to go within, do shadow work, understand yourself, understand why you're going to do what you're going to do, understand why you're not doing what you want to do. And then eventually you'll get to a place where you'll feel like, okay, I'm going to go down this path. And look, sometimes, the universe, it's not like, okay, if I do that, I'm going to find the path of less pain, the least pain. Oh, it's going to be great. Everything is going to be hunky dory. Sometimes you need to really, really do something to truly understand it. I was pushed into the hustle culture. I was pushed into so much burnout so I can learn about burnout, so I can teach it, so I can see how it manifests in my life, in my reality, what it does to my reality. And a lot of people might have that experience and go, well, that was a failure. I went down the wrong path. But I didn't. I went down the right path. It's just I needed to learn it so I can truly see how it affects reality, so I can teach it. So when people come up to me and go, I'm burnt out, I can go, I know exactly what you need to do. Instead of, well, I read a book and they told me what might work. So the right path doesn't necessarily mean everything is going to be hunky dory.
No, I don't think anything, well, especially when you're on the spiritual path, I don't think that the spiritual path is hunky dory. I do think it is testing and trying, and you're tested
Mhm.
to see how you react and how you respond.
It's very much, Yeah, it is. This whole, the mainstream community, spiritual community of positive vibes only, and everything's hunky dory. We're all love, and everything's love is just a huge coping mechanism for the actual spiritual work.
Mm. But basically, what you're saying is it's really important that we heal, that we take time to heal, and that will help us, and that our purpose evolves as we have the courage to take the action.
It's not just important, it's the only thing that will truly get you to the reality that you're trying to manifest. Because we talked about this just before the call, and the way that your reality manifests, the possibility that you want to experience is 100% based on who you are being. And let me explain it like this. Okay, so existence must exist. It cannot not exist. The concept of not existing is a thought. It's an idea. So because not existence cannot happen, it must exist. So by default, existence exists. The thing that exists is reality. Now, for reality to exist, it must have an observer. Something must be observed in order to exist. It must. Now, if reality is the only thing that exists, reality itself is the observer of itself. So now we understand that reality exists, and it's infinite. The reason it's infinite is because we have this concept of inside reality and outside reality. There is no outside, but following that concept, if you look at like a game, a computer game, like Grand Theft Auto, in the reality of Grand Theft Auto, they don't, it's not known about our 3D reality, and then the 4D and then the 5D, all these dimensions, realities. So because there is a possibility that there is one higher or lower, that means that it's infinite. So the thing that exists, reality, is infinite. And in that infinite reality, you have infinite possibilities because it's infinite. So every possibility exists, and the experience of that possibility exists as well. So you are now in a possibility. The reality you are experiencing is a possibility.
I'm right.
So, sorry? So, in order to be able to change what possibility that you're experiencing, there has to be a kind of like target. There has to be something to go, I want to experience that possibility, like that one over there. Now, if every possibility exists, there's kind of like a library of possibilities. And that's what I talk about in my grand unified theory. There's a library of possibilities, and those possibilities go through us. We don't go through it. But if I go, I want to experience that possibility, I have to be able to like kind of like drop a pin to what possibility I want to experience. The way that I do that is with my frequency being my main frequency, right? So you would authorize that. First, you go, okay, I want to be a billionaire architect. So then you go, that is authorized. I'm trying to put my pin into that. And as you're approaching that possibility, you have all of these other pins that you've already put in of the beliefs that you carry, because those pins are based on the frequency is based on who you are being. So who I am being is actually choosing the possibility that I'm experiencing. So what determines who I am being? The thing that determines who I'm being is my entire internal world, is everything that I'm scared of, is everything that I'm frustrated by, is all of the programmings, all of my beliefs, which are all programmed because of the experiences that I've been through in my life, which is my trauma. So the reason why I can't experience the possibilities that I want is because there are other parts of me essentially keeping me in these possibilities that I'm at right now. So when my partner speaks to me and I get angry and frustrated, who am I being? If I have a belief about money and I think that money is what provides me the safety, money is the thing that makes me confident, then I'm being someone who's waiting for money to then be confident, which the universe will go, okay, cool. I'll just keep manifesting a reality where you're waiting to be confident. But by doing the internal work, I can then find that safety without needing the money to be there first. And by being that version of myself, then I can be confident. I can be the guy who has the money. So it's not just important, it's actually how you mechanically steer in the library of possibilities.
Okay, interesting. So if you were to work with someone, then you would focus on their internal reality and how they heal that internal reality to be able to shift and change in their external reality.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Obviously, it's not as black and white as that because the external reality, to a degree, still, we hold energy, trauma in our bodies. There are tools that we use. But yes, that's essentially it. It always starts with the internal. If there's a scenario where you would believe you won't be able to do something or you're not going to be able to achieve that or something, that's like, why? Because if we strip everything back, if we strip absolutely everything, let's strip all of the 3D back and just live, or better yet, have the focus go straight to the 4D and 5D, which is your internal world. And let's go, okay, you know what? You can have any 3D projection that you want. Any. Why are we choosing that I won't be able to do that? It's because of something internally, because there's a belief there. There's something in there that's going, oh no, no, it might be too hard, or I'm not gonna be able to do that. Other people have already done it. I'm not gonna be, no one's gonna treat me like that. No one's like, hang on, we've just stripped all the 3D away. You get to choose what you want to experience. You're intentionally choosing that. Look at that. Oh yeah, because it's an unconscious pattern. But then when you become aware of an unconscious pattern, it then becomes a choice. So it's about teaching people how to bring to their awareness their unconscious patterns and make different choices. And sometimes you need deep integration work. You need to bring those parts of yourself in and integrate them. And that's what we do essentially. And that will completely shift your view of how to show up, how to behave, how to treat the 3D. A lot of people are terrified of the 3D. And I don't mean like a lion running at you or a car crash or anything. I'm talking about just simply speaking to their partner because it touches the core of their wounds and it's meant to by design. But instead of being curious and going, what is going on here? We're kind of just continuously projecting because we've never learned this stuff. No one's taught us. We didn't learn this stuff in school. We didn't even learn how to have relationships.
No, we don't get taught anything practical. That's
No.
obviously by design.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great way to keep people in continuous unconscious states of fear.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So you obviously been doing this work on yourself. Can you give an example of where you have healed some aspect of yourself and it's shifted your external reality? Like you said, you got a book coming out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got a book. It's called Too Needy Doesn't Exist. It's actually I've got another book after that. I'm actually starting to write already. I'm going to call it the cheat code. The first book is about your internal world. in terms of how you work as an emotional being. Because we talk about this, and it's very easy to listen to this and go, "Oh, okay, cool. I'll just go in and meditate and do that." It's like realistically, you need to learn how you work as an emotional being. You need to learn what a trigger is, what your nervous system is. You need to understand what perspective is, the difference between perception and perspective. You need to understand what a belief is, how it's formed, what that means, what your identity is, all of these things. And yeah, essentially, it is your identity that's creating who you are being. So, my shift in identity has shifted my reality. For example, one of the earliest examples that I had was after the breakup that sparked my awakening. I then was in this place where I was just unsure what's going on. I was learning spirituality, but not really believing in everything. One of the things actually helped me to believe it. My old internet provider, because I didn't have a house, I was staying with my friend at that time. They called me and goes, "Look, if you don't give us an address to where we can install the internet, you lose your contract." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you have to pay it in full as well, which is like £240." And I didn't have money. I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, what? This is madness." And I didn't have an address so they could install it. I was like, "Okay." And I was in the garden and my friend came up and my friend went, "No, you should really fight them. You should take them to court, not do this." And I remember thinking to myself, okay. He went and I was just stood there in the garden and I thought to myself, you know what? 10 years ago, I had financial issues, I had financial troubles, and I lost money. And right now, I don't think about that. That's not actually stressing me. That, like, I'll be okay. I will be okay, even if I lose this money, because I have been in the past. And I thought it's worth the amount of stress that I'm going through right now. It's worth just to reduce the amount of stress that I have right now. And that shift of just thinking, I don't need to grab onto it as much. I'll make more money. I'll always make money. I've always made money. I'll make more money. The next day, I got a call from my manager because I was a software engineer on a team. I got a call from my manager. It was my day off actually, and she said, can you just jump on a call?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she said, "Right, okay, so everyone's getting a pay rise. You're getting an extra 9,000 a year."
Huh,
And
nice.
I was like, "What? What do you mean?" Because yeah, the market's changed, and the skills that you have were not really being matched. A few people have mentioned this, so now everyone's getting a pay rise, and you're getting 9,000 extra a year. I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" Like, what? What do you mean? Like, where did this come from? So I went and told my friends. My friends were like, "What the fuck? Like, where did that come from?" I don't know. I don't. And I learned like, oh my God, this actually works. I wasn't holding on to this identity, to this idea, and I changed my identity to going, no, I'm someone who always makes money. I will make more money. It's okay. And instantly I got that. And from that pay rise, I was able to, this was in the height of COVID, by the way. So properties were like never available. I found a property eventually, and I was able to afford a nice place for myself and my son, compared to where I was staying, previously to my friend's house. And everything just fitted together. So my entire reality changed from that perspective shift.
Can you put that down to you almost self-soothed by the sounds of things. You self-soothed and you just knew that you would be able to find your way out of that issue.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It was a knowing that everything's going to be okay. And it's about safety. If I could kind of boil everything down, one of the most valuable things you're going to know is everything is about safety. Everything.
Mm.
So recently, I've actually gotten really good at detaching from the 3D. Because remember, I said reality is 3D, 4D, and 5D in this scenario. 3D is kind of like, let's say if you're playing a game, 3D is the TV screen, 4D is the controller that you're holding, and 5D is the player that's playing the game. And there's a rendering agent internally. When you go internal, you'll eventually see it. The whole, when spiritual teachers say you're trying to control the 3D, it's not external. It's not the rendered 3D you're trying to control. It's actually the creation, your ego inside in your internal world, which lives in your internal world, which is a completely different dimension, is holding on and trying to shape the 3D into this render like this, and you should be like this in order to let go. But in order to let go is to not be in the 3D anymore and to just be in, who you are. This is again how you operate from a high dimension. In that act of letting go of trying to make sure that the 3D renders this way is what we call safety. And the reason your ego won't do it is because it doesn't feel safe. And that's very, very understandable. All the trauma that we've been through makes us feel extremely unsafe. So every time you integrate a part of yourself, think of your ego as an amalgamation of all of your shadow parts, all of your parts at this level. And when you're healing trauma, it's like, oh, you're letting a little bit go, let a little bit go, a little bit go, a little bit go. Eventually, you'll get to a place, eventually, where the ego as in the entirety will let go of the 3D rendering component. And you can actually meditate and get into that. When you do that, you feel complete bliss. Like everything is just, oh, it's beautiful. Now, by doing that, that's you then providing safety from yourself first. And I'm not talking about safety in terms of, like, again, a lion running after you or drowning in water. Of course, there are 3D elements to certain types of safety for sure. But in today's world, like, most of the safety is kind of handled. For an average person, especially living in the Western world, depending on where you live, you're pretty much safe all the time. Even if you end up losing your house, the government will give you a place to stay. And we have our preferences, and that's understandable. But you have family that will help you, that will take you in and everything. So the element of safety is very different today. There's a lot of it that's handled that we are safe in so many ways. The safety I'm talking about is the internal safety, the perception of threat, the parental figures internally that we have that we're terrified of, the ideas and beliefs, concepts, and all of the programmings that we've been through that is creating that internal fear, safety from that. Once you create more and more safety, you're letting go of the creation of reality. And when you hear spiritual teachers say you got to let go and you just need to, the ego's trying to control, stop trying to control, that's what they mean. They mean learning how to let go. But the only way you can do that is through the integration of your trauma.
So, what is the type of work that people should be doing? I think you and I probably sound by the sounds advocate the same work: inner child work and shadow work. Are those two things that you would recommend people do?
Well, uh, shadow work encompasses all types of work. So inner child work is a form of shadow work. Journaling is a form of shadow work. Sitting there and thinking and becoming aware of something is shadow work. Shadow work is essentially going into the shadow, what you are unconscious of, and bringing that into the light of consciousness. So your internal world, think of it as you are the conscious awareness, not even the identity, you are the conscious awareness. So that conscious awareness that your focus is in is about 5% of your overall um, uh, awareness, consciousness, let's say. The 95% is your shadow. It's the part of yourself that you are unaware of. So to do anything, whether it's in a child work or anything like that, is to go into the shadow to bring to awareness what you are unaware of. So yes, it 100% is shadow work. But again, shadow work happens in so many different ways. It can do, and it can you can go into the shadow through breath work, through meditation, through journaling, through, whatever it is. For some people, breath work is easier for them. For other people, just sitting down and meditating is easier for them. But essentially, you're doing the the same thing in terms of bringing parts of yourself that you are unaware of that need to be felt, that need that energy to be released from the shadow. The manifestation looks the way that it does. But essentially, we're all doing the same thing internally.
Okay, fascinating. Fascinating. So this is this the work that you do one to one and in your community?
Yes, yeah. So I've actually got my inner awareness framework, which is specifically how to do shadow work in the most powerful way that I've figured out how to so far. There's nervous system regulation in there. There's learning and understanding what you are as an emotional being, why things are the way they are, and how to essentially integrate these parts of yourself. It's extremely necessary because there are so many different parts of you that need different things. Not only that, there are so many different parts of you that will need more attention or different types of attention. For example, you could just think about something and become aware of something and go, oh, and that's the shadow work. The integration is done. There are other parts of you that need to feel. You need to feel the emotion that is suppressed, and that is the integration is done. And there are many, many other parts of you that you need to sit down, feel, cry, release, then in the visualization in your internal world, you need to go to them, speak to them, validate them, meet the unmet needs there. And we do other things of like drinking the healing water and everything. And all of that information that comes is something that you need to understand and need to know in that moment as well. So that session is a much longer session. That's the deepest form of integration. And then there are also other aspects that need you to stop doing things in the 3D world. So, for example, I need you to stop going to parties where we don't really want to go to. We're just going there because we feel like it's the right thing we do, but we don't actually want to. I need you to start speaking up your truth. I need you to stop abandoning yourself whenever someone makes fun of us. So that, but the only way you're going to really truly understand what it is that you need is to go internal and to do that work. So my inner awareness framework teaches you how to go so you can do what you need to do to every single level for every single part of you.
So that's how someone would first start working.
Yeah, so for me, it's always a case of we work for our first 8 sessions. We work hand in hand with that. So it's like 8 sessions, which turns into like 8 weeks. So you do week one on your own. You'd watch. It's an online course. You'd do it there. Then we would have a call, and then after the 8 sessions, we then extend that to longer and longer. So then that way, that's how I can give the most value because if I was just to teach you the inner awareness framework and do it, then our sessions would be just that. There's no real kind of like uniqueness to that. So it's always hand in hand. You need to know how to integrate because if I have calls with you and we're just talking about things, you know, you need to be able to integrate these parts of yourself. And you should never have to rely on me to integrate. Like, never. I'm here to empower people and teach them how to do this. Obviously, I can see things that most people can't see within themselves, and I can teach them and help them, but the concept of integration should be something that someone should learn on their own for sure.
Excellent. Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. Well, that was all really fascinating. Thank you so much. So you are on Instagram, you are on YouTube. How can people find you?
Well, you can just Google me, Arain Samouie, and then on my website's there, everything's there, and my social media is in the footer. Honestly, you just search my name on any social media platform, I will come up.
And I recommend following Arain on Instagram because he puts out some really interesting content as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. There's so much new stuff coming out now, especially I mentioned all the channeling I got on Christmas. I'm going to create so much content now.
Yes, tell us a little bit about that. That sounds exciting. So
Yeah, so like I said, it's all the what I call the grand unified theory of awareness. It's my view of existence and reality and how it works. And if you go on my website and you read that, it can be a little bit confusing at times for some certain people. So what I'm gonna do, I've also got so much I've not added to that. And I'm just gonna create content. I was actually going to create a course, and then I thought, this stuff is too valuable. I'm actually going to give this out for free because it really, really, it just makes everything make sense. And I would have loved to have access to something like this a long time ago. So I'm just going to create so many videos. It's going to be mainly on YouTube, but it's going to be everywhere.
so now is the time to come and follow you and but take advantage of this free work that you're going to be uploading.
For sure. Absolutely. Like I said, I'm the message that I've needed. So it's going to help the other people that need it as well.
Oh, Aria, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your gnosis and your wisdom with our audience.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be on this call.
And we will see you next week with another amazing guest on the Dharma.life podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dharma Life podcast. I do hope you enjoyed this episode. Please come over and say hello on my Instagram, our Facebook group, and also please let me know what you thought. So if you are listening, please take a screenshot of the podcast that you are listening to. Tag me on Instagram and I will reshare your post, and please let me know what it is that you got out of today's episode. Remember, when we do our Dharma, we are happier, healthier, we live longer, and we have a deep sense of unshakable inner peace.